so much for joining us. I'll just give it a few minutes to let everyone filter in from the waiting room. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Amelia, and I'm part of the Disabled Leaders Network. Yes, I'll just give you a brief introduction to the session, and then we can get going. So for those of you who don't know, the Disabled Leaders Network is a network of leaders in various different sectors who've all been identified, and we come together to kind of improve our leadership skills and to advocate for change. And this event today is part of a series of public events on different topics related to disability. So we've done one on the rights of disabled students. Our next one in a couple of weeks is on advocating for change. And today's session is obviously on access to work. So before I get into today's session, I just wanted to give you a quick visual description. So I'm a white woman with long blonde hair. I'm wearing a red roll neck and a navy suit, and I'm sitting in front of a bookcase. And we're really pleased to welcome you here today. So today is a webinar format, which means that if you're in the audience, we can't see or hear you. So you can relax. You're not going to be visible, and feel free to enjoy the webinar in however comfortable state you need. But we would very much still like you to sort of get involved in the conversation and to ask questions and share your thoughts. So I would encourage you to please use the chat to do that. And as we go along, there will be a chance for you to ask questions. So please do ask them there, and then we will pose them to the panelists. You have hopefully seen that we have BSL, British Sign Language interpreters on the call today. So we have Francis and Simone. They should just appear sort of simultaneously with the speakers, so you shouldn't need to worry about that. If you do need the interpreters, they should be visible, but if you do have any problems, please just put message in the chat. We also have captions for this session, kindly set up by Heather, so you can find the link for that in the chat. And again, please just message if you have any issues. So I think that's all the kind of housekeeping. So today's session is on the workplace and disability and access to work in particular. So the whole point of today is to kind of think about what more employers can do to be inclusive, what kind of changes they can put in place, as well as how disabled employees can sort of make better use of the existing support that's already out there and the schemes that are out there, like access to work. And so I'm really pleased with to have such wonderful speakers with us. So we have Amy. I don't know if you want to just wait. Yeah, there's Amy. We have Anita, we have Deborah, and we have Joe, and I will introduce each of them before they speak. So yes, please do, as I say. Oh, Sophie, I think you've raised your hand.
Hi everyone. I've just been made aware that in the settings setting up the Zoom, the chat isn't actually available to attendees, so apologies for that, but you should be able to submit any messages in the Q&A, which we can access. So yes, if you have any messages to share, just please share them there instead. Apologies for that.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you're confused about that, down at the bottom of the screen, next to where there would normally be the chat, there should be a button that says Q&A, and it's as if you're submitting a question, which you very much can, but if you just want to add a comment, please do. Joe, did you have a...
Yeah, sorry, someone in the Q&A saying that they can't see the interpreter properly.
Right, okay, I think it's saying, Francis, I think it's saying your full face isn't in show. It is for me. It maybe just in this screen.
The top of your forehead, you're probably to about there, Francis. So maybe, yeah, maybe go. That's better.
Yeah, hopefully
For
that's
me.
better. I would say, please do say, if you are using BSL, it would probably work best if you're on a computer. rather than a phone. I'm not sure what device you're joining from, but that should make it a lot clearer. Oh, but they said yes, they can see better now. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Francis. Okay. Right. Hopefully that all makes sense. But yes, let's get started, shall we? So I'm delighted to introduce Amy Lowe, who is the CEO of AbilityNet. And I think, Harrison, if you were able to share Amy's slides.
Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here, and thanks team for inviting me to speak at this fantastic event about thriving as you transition into the workplace. So as Amelia says, I'm Amy Lowe, and going on to our first slide, for people who haven't come across AbilityNet before, we're a digital accessibility and disability inclusion charity, and our vision is a digital world accessible to all. So going on to the next slide, moving into the world of work after university or college can be a bit of a shock to the system, and it's often said that in the education system, disability support can feel like a little bit of a postcode lottery when it comes to the level of support that you get in your institution. And I've also heard transitioning into the world of work described as being a little bit like the Wild West, in terms of, again, you're never quite sure what you're going to find as you apply to different organisations. So I'm going to start off by playing a short video. It features one of AbilityNet's digital accessibility consultants, Rena Wharton, and she's going to be talking about some of her experiences as she transitioned into work. So I think we're trying to start the video from 1:40 if possible. Slide driver.
Yes, Harrison, if you were able to play the video from 1:40.
Harrison, sorry, Harrison, my memory is terrible. Literally just been introduced.
That's all right, just a minute.
Thank
No
you.
probs.
Hi, sorry, just to say, I also have the screen going as if I'm an attendee, and I can't see the slides at the moment. I'm not sure if that's the case for all attendees, but Harrison, could you just check that you're sharing, please?
I think he's not showing right now. He's just come off in order to share the video.
Right, no worries. Thought I'd just check.
Okay, when he shares the video, hopefully you will be able to see it.
Great.
Sorry for all the tech, everyone.
Right, it is embedded in the slides if that's easier, Harrison, but see how you go. Here we go. Wonderful.
Can you see
When I
that?
left Sheffield University, I started working at a supermarket. When I received my autism diagnosis just over a year later, I informed them of my diagnosis and nothing happened. When I had a meltdown at work about 7 months later, I was met with more inaction. It was another 11 months before I had an occupational health assessment, by which time it was too late and I was so overwhelmed that I had to resign. While I was waiting for my occupational health assessment, I applied to Access to Work. One of the adjustments was that I could take a break from the shop floor when I was getting overwhelmed. One of the things that I struggle with when I reach this stage is communicating. I couldn't deal with the questioning because I couldn't process and produce the words that I needed. It felt like I was constantly being watched, as if they didn't believe me. I was questioned about why I could deal with one thing and not another. And two quotes that are burned in my mind from this experience are, "Has your autism progressed?" And "Maybe this just isn't the right job for you." My experience here is a complete 180, and AbilityNet understand that one diagnosis does not mean that I'm unable to work or that I should not be employed. I was made to feel like there's nothing wrong with me, that I could ask for what I needed. They've been accommodating and understanding from the very beginning of the recruitment process.
So you can hear from Rena's sort of short video there that she had some pretty disappointing experiences, but also then you know, a great experience. And I have to say, she is absolutely flourishing at AbilityNet. we have a sort of a structured progression plan within the consultancy team, and Rena, with the adjustments, the ability to work at home, access to assistive technology, and an understanding about what she needs to thrive, has actually progressed through that progression plan at record speed, faster than anyone else we've ever appointed. And she's progressed from junior consultant to be one of our senior consultant team leaders, and is a hugely important and highly regarded member of our team. So, you know, as you think about going into your first role, how can you increase that probability of, firstly, identifying an employer that is, you know, aware of diversity and different needs, and most likely to understand what you need to thrive, but also communicate the fantastic benefits of onboarding you as a new employee. So going on to the next slide, firstly, there are a few signals that you can look out for that might mean that employer is quite mature in their disability inclusion policies and attitudes. So do your research. Are they disability confident employers, or even better, disability confident leaders? What that means is that they will have taken a structured approach to identifying how to provide an inclusive employee experience. Do they have employee resource groups that offer support and advocacy for disabled colleagues? What's their equity, diversity and inclusion policy, and does it reference disability? You can also look for reviews on things like Glassdoor to see what that indicates about the culture. And something that I've had in both directions is make connections with people on LinkedIn and approach them for candid feedback about the employee experience. Going on to the next slide. You should always spend a bit of time before you apply for a role thinking about barriers that you might face and what could be challenging. It might be around the area of induction and training. Do you have certain learning preferences or things that you could request that will make it easier for you to hit the ground running? Are you likely to encounter any barriers with systems from an accessibility perspective? Are there working patterns that are going to work better for you? Are you likely to require equipment or access to some of the assistive technologies that you've perhaps been using at university? Having a good think about all of those areas is really key to being able to approach a conversation about support. So going on to sharing your access needs, this conversation is really important.
Hi, Amy. Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We've just had someone in the Q&A express concerns about the BSL. Could I just confirm with other attendees if they're able to see it? Because as far as I can tell, it should be working. So I just want to see if this is an issue kind of on our end, or if maybe there's a technical issue the attendee is facing. So yeah, sorry to pause. I just don't want them to miss the conversation. We get this sorted. So yeah, apologies everyone for the technical issues.
So can you put in the chat if you can see the BSL interpreters when the slides are being shown?
All right, I've got a no so far, so I'll investigate.
Some people are saying yes, some are saying no. Okay.
There are so many different views in Zoom. That can sometimes be the problem. So it might be that you need to look at the view options in the top right hand corner and just flick through those options in case you've got yours configured. I'm quite happy to go without slides if that makes it easier to see the BSL interpreter.
When you say the view options, do you mean for the attendees need to change?
For the attendees, exactly. Yeah, they would be configurable at the attendee level. It's not something that you'll be able to stipulate, I don't think.
Sorry, we're just trying to.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, I'm not sure if you can hear me. It's Simon, the other interpreter.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I'm now lit because I can't see me at all.
Yeah, sorry, I only had the currently working interpreter set up, but I will
Okay.
set you up now.
Just to let you know, we usually hand over every 15 minutes. So just to make you aware, when it's coming up for the 15:15, 30:30, and 45-minute, we'll be looking to transfer over. Okay.
All right, understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about this, everyone. Not had this issue before.
It's always the way, isn't it? Yeah. Always something that doesn't quite go according to plan with all these tech tools.
Yeah, I think I've sorted it.
Oh, you think you've sorted it? Okay, can people now say if they can see Simone as well as the slides?
You might need to arrow along to Simone. I can see you, Simone. It's at the top there where you arrow to the view that you want. Oops.
Okay, seems like people are saying they can see.
Good stuff. Okay, Harrison, I was just finishing up on the last slide, but I'll be very speedy. I know we're short on time. So yes, it really is an important conversation to when you're sharing your access needs. So it's worth practicing this with a friend to be prepared, and you really should be, you know, considering your unique strengths, how to convey them in any conversation. So the things that you find straightforward and the things that you excel at, and then also talk about some of the access requirements you might have that are going to set you up for success. You can choose the right moment to have that conversation. You know, you're under no obligation to share a need for requirements early on in the recruitment process if you don't want to. And it's really good to be open to collaboration and creativity and potentially compromise when you're talking about what could help you. So in terms of additional help that's out there, Anita is going to fill you in on access to work, so I'm not going to dive into that now, but there is also funding available to support you. And there are also lots of organisations out there that can offer advice and help. One of them is AbilityNet. If you need any help or have any questions around tech and disability, you can call or email our helpline. We also do provide needs assessments, one-to-one training, and we've got loads of online resources that you can access to understand adaptations that are possible and how to adapt your tech to meet your needs. On the organisational side, we also work with employers. This is the next slide, Harrison, to help them make sure their digital platforms are accessible, that their working policies are accessible and inclusive. So you can always signpost a new employer or line manager to our services to help them understand and get to grips with how to create a really fantastic, inclusive working environment. Finally, we also have a thriving sort of community of practice, going on to the next slide, Harrison, where we run webinars, we write blogs, we host events and roundtables. So I encourage everyone to sign up for our newsletter to hear about events and read useful news items, and again, perhaps something to share with your HR team and line managers when you are appointed to your first role. So yes, I will stop now because I know we're tight for time, but if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Thank you so much, Amy, and I'm really sorry for the tech problems for you and everyone in the audience. Hopefully it seems like we've sorted it now. And we will come to questions. I can see a couple of questions have been asked, so I'll make sure to come to those at the end and ask you if that's okay. So now we're going to hear from Anita Folvari, who is an Access to Work consultant, and he'll be talking us through the Access to Work scheme. So Anita, I think, are you going to share your screen? Perfect. And can I just check? Yep, we can see your screen. And can I just check with everyone in the Q&As if you can see the interpreter at the same time? Yes. Okay, people are saying yes. Okay, fire away, Anita.
Fantastic. All right. So, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm here to tell you all about Access to Work. But before we start, let me just ask you, have you ever faced challenges in life due to your disability that made you feel unsupported? And I think we all have the same answer to this question, but this is exactly what Access to Work is there to address. So, what are we covering today? First, I'll just very quickly go over what Access to Work is, and I'll be quick there because you can Google that information. But in the second point, I'll cover what you could get from Access to Work so you can see the possibilities. And lastly, I'll give you some tips and advice about how to best approach your application. But first, just quickly about me. As Amelia kindly said, I'm a specialist support worker and Access to Work consultant, and I started my consultancy because I've seen firsthand how Access to Work grants can transform people's lives. And that's because it doesn't just help you at work, it can transform your life in every aspect, and I'm here to show you how. So let's quickly look at what Access to Work is. It is a government grant where you can get up to £69,000 that you can spend at support for your condition at work. Essentially, it pays for support so you don't have to pay out of pocket. You're eligible if you live and work in Great Britain, you have a disability or health condition, and you're 16 years old or over. Here's a quick tip. Access to Work doesn't help you get work that is accessible. It is there to support you at work, so you must already have a job to apply. There are some differences if you're employed or self-employed. For employed people, you need to already be at work, or you need to have an interview lined up or about to start a work trial or a work experience. And if you're self-employed, you need to show Access to Work that your business is viable. That means you have a business plan and your turnover is at least £6,400 a year. And I'll quickly walk you through the process as well. So once you apply, there's about a 30-week wait before you hear anything back. Once Access to Work looks at your application, you will be assigned with a case manager who will handle your case and will make the final decision about your support. And at this stage, you might get an assessment as well. You'll be asked lots of questions so the assessor and case manager can understand what support would help you at work. But don't worry, I'll give you some tips later about how to best approach that. And once the case manager has all the information that they need, they'll make the final decision about what you get in your grant. And after that, you have 13 weeks to put support in place. So before we move on to the next section, I want you to imagine how much easier your work life could be with meaningful support. So what can you get from Access to Work? The first category is specialist equipment, but I'm just mentioning this one because I know other people will cover this in more detail today. These are essentially things that go beyond the standard equipment at work. It covers things like ergonomic equipment or physical aids or even software subscriptions. Then, if you need help traveling to work, or if your work involves traveling, Access to Work can help with that too. It's important to understand that anyone can help with your travel. You can obviously get taxis, but this includes lifts from your co-workers or even your relatives as well. Then Access to Work has a service called the Mental Health Support Service, and a lot of people don't really know about it. It is essentially fortnightly phone calls that you have with a mental health specialist. The great thing about it is you can use it any way you like. You can use it to check in or get advice about concrete things or just vent to someone. And they can also send you helpful resources about the things you're discussing. And because it's tailored to you, a lot of people actually find it really similar to coaching. So I really recommend that you ask your case manager to add this to your grant. Then let's talk about support workers. Essentially, a support worker's job is to help you at work if you need human support. And I know a lot of people have trouble visualizing how a support worker could help them, so I'll give you some examples. Let's say that you have dyslexia and you have trouble filling out spreadsheets, then you could get a support worker who fills out all your spreadsheets for you. Or an example for where someone's giving you physical support, maybe you're a teacher and you use a wheelchair, and the children drew some pictures and you were asked to put them on the wall in the corridor. You could have a support worker who places them on the wall for you so you don't have to. It's important to remember that anyone can be your support worker. You can obviously hire a professional specialist, but it can be your coworker, or it could be a family member as well. And you can also get British Sign Language interpreters or even coaches as support workers too to help you at work. Then there are two categories of support left, and these are less common. Access to Work can do car modifications for you if you use your car for work. But Access to Work also always looks for the most cost-efficient solutions. So if you want to modify your car so you can use it better for work, they might argue that it would be more cost-efficient for you to use taxis, for example. But in rare cases, they can actually modify your car. And the same goes for your physical workplace as well. They can make changes to it. For example, install ramps, or give you accessible doors, or audio-visual alarms, things like that. But these are rare cases. And lastly, there are a couple differences in how you put support in place, depending on if you're employed or self-employed. So if you're employed, your employer usually buys things and claims money back from Access to Work. But you need to make sure that they do it within the deadlines. And if you're self-employed, you need to buy things yourself. This usually means that you pay for things upfront and then claim the money back from Access to Work later. But if you find this difficult, you can try and find suppliers who are happy to receive payments directly from Access to Work. These do exist, you just need to find them. Now that you know what you can get, I wanted to give you some tips about how you can maximize your grant. So first and most important, I want all of you to apply as soon as possible because of the 30-week wait I mentioned earlier. You need to know that your application doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be submitted so you're in the queue. You can even go through the whole questionnaire when you apply, responding with "I don't know" to every question, because when it's your turn, your case manager will go through the whole questionnaire again with you, so you can think of things while you wait. Then, here are some tips about how to deal with your case manager and the assessment. Your case manager will be your point of contact throughout the whole process. So if you have any questions, you need to ask them. And it's really important to remember that you always have a 2-week deadline to respond to your case manager. So make sure you set up reminders for that, because if you miss that, they can close your case, and we don't want that. So the most important tip is really this: if you have any issues or have questions, or you think you'll miss the deadline, talk to your case manager and ask for more time. Then the assessment. First, you're always better off having an assessment because that is your chance to ask for concrete things. And I want you to know that these assessments are not like other ones from the DWP, so always ask for one. And at the same time, if you have an existing assessment you're happy with, you can use that too. And as a general tip, both for your case managers and your assessors, they might not know your condition. Don't assume that they do. So make sure that you always explain how things affect you personally. And lastly, quick tip, you don't actually need a diagnosis to get support from Access to Work, which is brilliant. So if you are affected by anything, make sure you say it because you can get support for it. Then some tips about how to prepare to answer all these questions, because I know it can be difficult to talk about your condition. So you can try thinking about what's hard at work, or if you don't work yet, then what's hard at school or even at home. And if you ever received any previous accommodations, you should go through that as well, because if they helped you before, they can help you at work as well. And I also have some downloadable resources that will be shared with you at the end of the webinar that can help you prepare too. And to maximize the support you can get, you need to make sure you always tell Access to Work about absolutely everything you do at work and how you do it. For example, if your working days are variable, then list all the days that you might work. What you need to remember is the more responsibilities you have, or the more days and hours you work, the more reasons you have for support. So always give the higher end of the ranges and list everything. And you can get help with your Access to Work application, but because every condition is unique, I recommend you Google the words Access to Work, then your condition, then support to find specialists. And the DWP has their own resources too. They have a phone line and there's online guidance about Access to Work, but the helpline has a 1 hour hold time and the guide can be really hard to wrap your head around. But you have other options. For example, I offer free Access to Work consultations, so this could help you if you have just a quick question that can be covered in one meeting. So to end, let's go through what we covered today. I can't emphasize this enough. If you improve how you feel at work, you improve your whole life. So getting an Access to Work grant can change your life. If you have a disability, you owe it to yourself to try and maximize what you can get. So remember, it's always worth applying because of the huge potential. It can literally transform your whole life. So what's stopping you from applying? You have nothing to lose except for your time and energy. And for us disabled folk, there is nothing more important than our time and energy. But wouldn't you already be losing that in a job that is not accommodating you? I leave you with that thought. That brings me to the end of my talk. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to your questions in the Q&A later.
Thank you so much, Anita. Thank you. That was really, really insightful and helpful, and loads of practical takeaways there. I can see lots of questions have come in. So I think we will come to those. I guess one question that might be just most relevant to ask right now is just at what point, if you know at what point in the process Access to Work will contact your employer?
Oh, that's a great question. That varies depending on the case manager. When you apply, there's a box you can tick that says, do not contact my employer before you speak to me. So if that's a concern, make sure you pay attention to ticking that box. Some case managers, I mean, human error exists. They might contact your employer before then, but they really shouldn't if you make sure that you indicate that during your application.
Perfect.
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll come to the other questions at the end. So now I would like to introduce Jo Tolley, who is a member of the Disabled Leaders Network and who will be talking about her experience of going through the Access to Work process.
Yeah, hi everyone. As Amelia's already said, my name's Jo Tolley. I'm the internal events lead for the DLN this year. I'm passionate about centering the voices of children and young people within practice and policy. I'm a fan of good people and I love giraffes, so that's just a bit of background about me. Are we all right to go to the next slide, please? I think we've lost
the slides.
If not, I can just talk, it's fine.
There you go. Can you see that, Jo?
Yeah. So my Access to Work journey began in 2020 when I got my first paid role. As Anita has already said, I was waiting quite a while for any kind of decision to be made and for the process to progress. I have cerebral palsy, and for me that means that I'm a full-time wheelchair user and require assistance for every aspect physically of daily life. Initially I went into the workplace to get my workplace assessment, and adjustments were made and equipment was funded, which was really good. But then, as luck would have it, we went into lockdown and the whole system slightly changed as we all started working remotely. I found this to be quite difficult because I didn't have the support that I felt that I needed when working remotely. I believe that's changed now a little bit as people have started working more remotely than not. So what's really good for me is that a lot of my care hours, the support that I need is funded through Access to Work. So it means that I'm able to travel to various places as and needed with a support worker. And it also means that they can just help me physically with the aspect of my work. So that is a bonus. I'm also self-employed, so as Anita has already said, I have 2 awards, one for my self-employed work and one for employment, which both work fairly similarly. I think Anita has already explained like the difference is between those, but actually when you get awarded, once that's in place, the process is quite similar. And I believe I was offered a job coach as well, so that's something really useful to know, so that if you're feeling as though you're not quite confident or you need that extra support, that is something that I believe Access to Work offers. And needs to please correct me if I'm wrong at some point. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Yeah.
Okay. Could you hear me before? Because I've only just realised.
Yeah.
that.
No. Yes, we could.
Yeah. So I think with every system there are pros and cons. I would say the major pros is that it's a system that allows disabled people to work. So please don't be disheartened about the length of time it takes. It is frustrating, but actually, once the support is in place, it's really useful and it enables us to work alongside non-disabled people in similar ways. The application process I found was really easy. So it's really quick to fill out, isn't it? It said there's you can also do that over the phone, but the online guidance is pretty good, I found. And yeah, I would say just be aware of the backlog, because things do take quite a long time to get in place. Yeah, that's just a little bit about my experience, but I'm quite happy to answer any questions either now or you can grab my contact details and we can have a chat then too.
Thank you so much, Jo. It's really useful just to hear different people's experiences and perspectives, because as I think the questions demonstrate, there's a lot of people just don't even know what to ask for, what kind of things, what adjustments you can expect. So it's really great to hear different perspectives and kind of see the different options that might be available and might be relevant to you. So thank you. And I do just want to say, having seen some of the comments in the chat, we very much recognise that these systems like Access to Work, like the Disability Confidence Scheme, they're flawed systems. We don't work for the government. We're not saying that they're like amazing systems. We're just trying to give people the tools to kind of navigate them as best as they can, to make the most of them, because at the moment they're the only options we have. So we as a network, we're very keen to sort of advocate for change, and we are trying to sort of get in the rooms with the decision makers to hopefully make these systems, reform them and make them work better. But for now, we just want to make sure that because there is a lot more that your average disabled person could be getting support wise that they're just not getting, because these systems are so clunky and we don't know how to navigate them. So that's the sort of purpose of today's session. So I know we're running short on time, but we may go a little bit over because of the tech. I just wanted to now introduce Deborah Underwood-King, who will be speaking to us about the Disability Confidence Scheme. Deborah is an EDI and emerging talent consultant. So Deborah, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Amelia. And just to say, I'm a description of myself. I'm a white woman wearing a blue shirt and a pale blue scarf against a white background. And so, yeah, it's great to be able to talk to you today. And I have to say, I'm not part of the DWP. I'm just here to tell you about the Disability Confidence Scheme so that you have an understanding of what that means for you and how that helps you in the workplace. So if we could have the next slide, please, Harrison. So what is the purpose of the Disability Confidence Scheme? It's twofold. It's to give guidance and to support companies to help them recruit, but not only recruit, but also retain disabled employees, and also to signpost applicants to companies that are committed to employing people with disabilities or long-term health conditions. Thank you, Harrison. So as you're probably aware, there are 3 levels, but I think there's a bit of confusion about what those levels mean. And I am aware that, you know, level 1, possibly level 2, because they're self-assessed, they are open to manipulation. But I still believe it's a powerful tool to work with companies to make them look at their employment processes and look how they look all their aspects of their recruitment, their EDI. So if companies are on the journey, they start at committed, which means they are at least starting that journey. Obviously, what you don't want is companies to stay at the committed stage. The idea is they start at committed and move through to employer and then leader. So leader is really what I would advise as a, if you're looking for a job, is to go for companies that are leaders. So if we could have the next slide. So yeah, sorry, as leaders, the reason that that's a good one to go for is that they are verified by an external body, and they have to have proved that they have employed disabled people. So it's more than a commitment, it's an action. And as I say, they have to work through each stage, but to give you an idea, there are about 20,000 employers who are on the scheme, but only 5,000, not even quite 5,000, are employers, so have reached that stage 2. And then again, only 680 are actual leaders. So it is the leaders really that, you know, the worry is, are companies not progressing through and becoming employers and then leaders? So what have they actually committed to do? So they've committed, sorry, Harrison, I got ahead of myself, sorry. So they've committed to look at their recruitment, to look at the way they recruit, to look at their recruitment policies, to promote vacancies. So they have to advertise with Job Centre Plus, and they also should be putting those adverts in the communities in which they're working. They're committed to offer interviews to applicants who meet the criteria, and to make reasonable adjustments, and also to support existing employees. Thank you, Harrison. They also have to choose some of these activities that they commit to do, whether that be work experience, work trials, employment, obviously is the ideal, apprenticeships, shadowing opportunities, traineeships, paid internships, student placements, and sector-based training. So they have to commit that they're going to take part in these activities. Okay, thank you, Harrison. So yeah, the leader has that self-assessment has been externally verified. So it's not just them saying these are our commitments. It's a confirmation that they are employing disabled people, but the employer also has to act as a champion within their community and has to share best practice with other companies, with their supply chain, with their clients. And it's valid for 3 years and it has to be revalidated after that. So it's not, you know, once they've got it, that they stay with it. Sorry, Harrison, are you all right to go back to that slide? Sorry. So I was just going to give an example of how I've worked with a company to go from not starting the journey to go through the different stages to become a leader. So it was a construction company which isn't known for necessarily its inclusive nature. It's traditionally white male industry, and this company employed 3,000 people. So it was a, you know, it was a big task to get to leader stage. Firstly, we really looked at the recruitment process from the wording, sort of taking apart the wording and making it much more straightforward, taking away those essential criteria and the desirable criteria, making the application process more straightforward. So it didn't have to be an online application, different ways of applying. And certainly with apprenticeships, a lot of large construction companies, their recruitment process for apprentices is an interview online first, which is just firing questions at an applicant. It's not actually, isn't even a face-to-face online. So we decided that was not the best way to recruit. So then the interview process, adapting the interview process, that can be quite an an intimidating sphere. So different ways of interviewing, perhaps work trials rather than an interview to give people the experience to show what they can do. Also, we did disability awareness training for all recruiters. So and it's a large company, it's 3,000 employees. So all the recruitment team had disability awareness training. All the interviewers, if if a manager was interviewing, they had the disability awareness training first before they did interviews. We also offered paid internships, partnerships with other organisations. Assisted employment organisations are great. Obviously working with schools and colleges. And what we actually found was, having taken apart the recruitment process, it actually encouraged more people with other protected characteristics to apply for these jobs as a result of those changes. Then obviously there were adaptations in the workplace, for example, a hearing loop in reception. The managers had disability awareness training, mental health first aiders, checking that the employee assistance programme was fit for purpose and offered counselling. Apprenticeships, looked at actually the disclosure form, because after changing the disclosure form, more current employees disclosed that they they had a disability or a health concern. So it was taking away that fear of doing that from existing employees. Starting a disability network in a company, which Amy's already referred to, is a really good thing to offer support, guidance, and also for employees to know what that company is doing to support them and advocate for them. Then we rolled out disability awareness training throughout the company, and interestingly found out that after that training, current employees were encouraging family members and friends of theirs who had disabilities to actually apply for jobs within the company. So it really raised awareness of the fact that there were job opportunities, career opportunities. Disability awareness weeks with lots of lunch and learns with guest speakers, training about neurodiversity, for example, and also really looking at career progression, because it's important that you're, as a company, that you're honest with your statistics, that you know your data, that when you employ someone, that their career progression is equal. We also had disability awareness champions. So we had the apprenticeships and the graduates who took on this role of, as I said, it was a construction company. So they took on the role of ensuring that the areas around the construction sites were accessible, so that it didn't impact on people with disabilities. When hoardings were put up, the impact of a hoarding, when footways were closed, when drop curbs weren't in the right place, when a footway had been changed, signage, accessibility to pedestrian crossings, all these things that happen when construction happens in an urban area. So in summary of that, we made the changes at the pre-employment stage, the employment and for employees, but also then within the work that was carried out. So it's changing that culture, and it was really good to have the young people involved as the champions and agents of change in that. I'll just give a quick, if I've got time, Amelia, a quick case study, so you know that there's a real person who has a really good career as a result of this. It was a young man who was neurodiverse, who'd chosen not to go to university, and subsequently could not get jobs that matched his capabilities and his ability, so he wasn't stretched or stimulated because his qualifications, because he hadn't gone to university, did not match up with his ability. So we gave him a work trial, and he trialled in a period of time in 3 different divisions within the company, and he was really successful at each of them, and then the final one was the one that was the best fit. So there was no time pressure. It was making sure that it was the best fit for him. And so he then had a paid internship in that division, and then they wanted to take him on as an apprentice. So we then set him up with a level 7 apprenticeship, which is, master's level. Adaptations were put in place for him. So his working day was slightly different. He was able to eat his lunch earlier to avoid that overstimulation in what was a very busy canteen. His journey to work, he came by train, and another apprentice happened to live in a similar area, and made sure they caught the same train together, just to give him that support getting to work. Clear outlines of his work, what was expected, so there weren't any sudden surprises. There was an incident where he had kind of put himself at a safety risk, because he would catch the train home and knew exactly how long it took him to walk to make that journey. But unfortunately, it was at the time when it was on a big industrial estate, when a lot of cars were leaving other companies, and he was so focused on catching that train that he wasn't aware of the traffic. And so it came to the employer's attention, and so they changed his working time so he could get an earlier train and avoid that risk. So it was about constantly being aware of making those adaptations. He was then able to flourish, won a national award, won local awards, and now has just finished his qualification and has a really successful career, and is very much a valued employee. So there are other case studies, but I know we're short of time. So Harrison, are we okay to go to the next slide? Thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to draw your attention for where you can then find a job where you are aware that the employer is disability confident. So there's the Find a Job website. So that will highlight the companies that are disability confident. There's obviously Job Centre Plus and those other areas, but that's a very good website. And then if you want to find out if a particular company is a disability confident employer, or if you're looking for work in a particular sector, the second website takes you to a spreadsheet of all the 20,000 employers who are on that journey. So you can filter it to be whether you specifically want to filter it to be a company that's a leader, or you can filter it by a geographical area, or you can filter it by a particular sector that you're interested in. So, and I think, I know we've said it's best that you're looking for leaders, but the good news is that if people are on at least a committed employer, it means they are starting to look at their processes, and the idea is that they will continue to do that. Okay. So last slide then, thank you, Harrison. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to give you some awareness of what that scheme means, what the different levels are. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or chat to any employers who are thinking of going on that journey and might need a bit of support. So thank you, Amelia.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Hopefully, if anyone is an attendee who is an employer, you'll hopefully have got some ideas from that. But also, if you're a disabled employee, again, hopefully that might have given you some ideas of potential adjustments or things that you could look out for, such as asking to do a work trial instead of an interview, things like that. So I think we are obviously at time, but we will go a little bit over if people are willing to stay, simply because we obviously had all those tech issues. So I think I will fire away with some questions, if that's okay. I've been looking at questions in the chat. Amy, I think there was a question for you for how to sort of overcome fears of being seen as difficult by sort of like making your needs apparent.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and I do think that's why I was saying, although you'll feel silly practicing with a friend, do practice that conversation and take on those roles of somebody who might misunderstand you. And a lot of it is all about how you frame the conversation to just focus on saying, there's definitely some small tweaks to the way I work that makes me much more productive and much more able to, deliver on my objectives. And I just love to have a chat about how we could make that happen. I think I saw another comment in the chat that said, around the topic of compromise, if you're not able to compromise, are you going to be seen as being difficult? I think it's really important to remember that you're the expert in your own health condition or neurodivergence or whatever that may be. So, a lot of the time employers are a little bit nervous. They feel like they need to suddenly understand the ins and outs of a health condition, and it's helping them understand it's more about the barriers that you could encounter and that you're really clued up on how that might work. So that's what I would say, is that confidence and the sort of positivity of framing how these adjustments are going to be beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective and the right way to frame it. And obviously, if your employer is not willing to sort of accept that, then you do have to wonder if they are the right employer for you. But I understand that's a tricky thing to.
And I think, you know, in the most mature organisations, adjustments are available to everybody, and it is just about flexible working. So sometimes helping your employer understand it doesn't have to be an onerous, you know, time intensive thing to adapt the workplace to suit people's needs. You just need to give more choice and flexibility, which it's amazing how flexible you can be. And that tends to result in more loyal employees, happier, well rested, less absence. So, you know, the list of benefits just goes on and on, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe, Deborah, if I could ask you to kind of build on that, what would kind of be your advice for getting managers behind these kind of changes? How do you sort of, you know, maybe this is a top-down thing where the top are really keen to pursue this, but lower down, it's not that change has not come through, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's on the ground, people really want to make these changes, but the policies aren't there. Sort of, what would be your advice?
I think it's a bit of both. I think you do need a buy-in from the top, definitely, and you need that commitment. And hopefully, if you're talking about health within existing employees, you need executive members on those working groups. But also it can be from the bottom. So I can think of an example where a young man was given an opportunity from a local college, a work experience opportunity, and he did so well within this team because it was a logistics team, and he absolutely loved maps, and that was really his skill set, and it was a skill set that they hadn't found anywhere else, and he, you know, had a big impact on that team. And so they then, when it was time for his, you know, internship from college, his work placement to finish, they put in, you know, something to the management, to the board, saying that they wanted to take him on as an employee, and they did a whole cost analysis of the money he'd saved. So, you know, and then the good news about that spread, because within that company, people were starting to look then at how everybody's skill set, you know, has a place. So I think you need both. That answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's really, I think it's, I don't know the mix of who we've got on the call, but I guess I would just encourage if you are a manager to maybe champion the disabled people in your workplace, whether you have a disability yourself or not. And I think, as you were saying earlier, Deborah, it can open up accessibility and inclusivity beyond disability. You know, we're always saying that if you make things accessible for people with disabilities, you make them accessible to everyone, and you might find the diversity in your workforce really improve by making these kind of changes.
Yeah, definitely.
So Anita, I think there were lots of questions about access to work. So I'm trying to filter to ones that maybe people can't get an answer for online that would be really beneficial to hear from you. I guess some of the like very specific things, like, do you need to reapply if you move roles or move companies? Do you have to start that process all over again, or can you kind of bring the support with you into your new employment? And then another question was kind of how it works with having a support worker. Like, do you have to go and source them, sort out their pay? Like, how does all the kind of admin side of it work, I guess?
That's such good questions, very practical questions. So the first one, where you're changing jobs. So that's sort of a contentious question. Who owns the equipment? Who owns the support? Especially if you have an employer who bought it for you. In theory, you should be owning it. You're the applicant. It was bought for you. But there are some employers who are a bit more difficult, and they say, I paid for it, it's mine. So hopefully you have a good employer who lets you take it with you. At the same time, if it's not something that was physically bought and you already have it, for example, a support worker, what you need to do is submit a change of circumstances request to Access to Work to tell them you're changing jobs. Can I please have what I had before, etc. Unfortunately, they process those on the same timeline as new applications, so there would be a 30-week wait, what you can try and do is just take the support anyway and hope that it gets approved, and then your grant can be backdated so that even if you're out of pocket, you get the money back later. But that's a personal decision, and it really depends on your circumstances. And to quickly respond about the question about the support workers, so there are different ways to go about it. You can hire a freelancer, or if you have an employer, they might want to hire someone as an employee to help support you at work. So it really depends. If your employer is on board, you have an easier job, they will deal with it. But you're also fully in control of dealing with it yourself. Even if you're employed, you can just hire someone yourself and say, this is my support worker, I'm going to deal with the admin, I'm going to pay them. That obviously carries the responsibilities of getting their invoices, submitting your own claims, etc., etc. So it depends on your situation and your own preferences. I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think another question that you will definitely be able to answer, and maybe Amy, maybe Deborah as well, but kind of your advice if you're unsure what your access needs are, especially if you've not yet started the job, and if you're kind of new to the workplace in general, or maybe specifically that sector, that role, you might not really know what your requirements will be, what kind of barriers you'll face, what kind of difficulties. So I guess if you have any advice for approaching that, I think some people have asked if there's like lists of potential reasonable adjustments out there, or just kind of, yeah, your advice for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question, really relatable, and something a lot of us face. I had some resources put in chat earlier, links. There is one from a great American website that lists different potential job accommodations per condition or disability. So you can give it a browse. It is American, but it's an excellent starting point if you sort of have no idea what could potentially help you. Another thing you can do is, and this is why I say you should always get an assessment from Access to Work. The assessors are actually really friendly for Access to Work, even though it's part of the DWP. It's mind-blowing, and they really will almost try and push accommodations on you. So that's a good opportunity as well to try and get ideas for what might help. The assessor might just straight up tell you and recommend things for your grant. And as well as I have some downloadable worksheets that could help you reflect on what challenges you might have, because most likely it's not something you only struggle with at work. It might pop up in different ways throughout your life as well. So my worksheets might help you reflect on these things as well. So these would be my points for starters.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of fact sheets as well on our website. And I would say the other thing is talk to people. Again, LinkedIn is a fantastic place to contact people. You know, you might follow people who are sort of disabled influencers and so on, and just ask people what's helped you. I think it's a lot easier for people to articulate what they find challenging rather than the adjustment that they need. So sometimes just listing the barriers and difficulties that you either have experienced or anticipate, and then, you know, loop in with an Access to Work assessor. You can call our helpline as well. We'd be really happy to kick that around with you. Because it's amazing what's out there, and it's amazing what you don't need to wait for funding for. There's so much inbuilt technology, strategies, things that you can enact straight away. So yeah, I would say it's good to talk about these things.
Thank you. Thank you. Deborah, I don't know if you wanted to come in. Don't worry if not.
No, I think Anita and Amy have said it perfectly.
Perfect. And I guess the final question maybe is kind of how to, as we know, there is a big wait for Access to Work, and also for someone maybe in a workplace where they're kind of going through that process where the employer is maybe willing to listen, but there's always a delay, kind of how to deal with that mentally, how to keep your morale up, if there are options like you were just saying, Amy, things that you can maybe do even before the formal funding or the formal schemes have been put in place.
Yeah, I just think, you know, isn't it the vast majority, 98% of adjustments cost less than £200? I think there's a stat around that, and so really do don't assume that you need funding to adjust the workplace to suit your needs. There's an awful lot that can be done just by discussion and ideas and creativity, plus inbuilt technology. You know, AI is a whole new webinar topic of how people are using that in lieu of sort of human support as well. So that's another place you can go for advice, is AI. Ask about what adjustments are available to address barriers. You'll be amazed at the quality of some of the responses that come back, and it's all about experimentation at the end of the day.
Yeah, and so am I right in thinking that, you know, like you're saying, experimentation, that things can change? You know, this doesn't have to be set in stone, that the support you got one time, or I know obviously we have a lot of students who are maybe getting support at their university or potentially even at their school, or, you know, they might be getting the disabled students allowance, and I'm assuming a lot of that can translate and that will give you ideas to ask for in the workplace, but it's not set in stone. You can, you know, conditions evolve for one thing, and technologies
and your job changes. You know, you move into a line management role, you might need additional support or to consider you know, alternative ideas, and I think having that dialogue and that positive mind frame of, you know, working in partnership with your line manager or employer to achieve the goals of the organization together, that's the framing of the conversation. And then I think that really does help, but it does take practice to get confident in those conversations. And of course, not every employer is as accommodating as the next, but I think starting with a positive outcome in mind is quite important as well, because that tends to make the conversations feel more positive and forward focused.
Absolutely. Anita, did you want to come in with anything there?
Just thinking, what was the original question? Because Amy said so much helpful advice.
Gone off on a tangent, probably.
Making me think now, what was the question?
About whether things change over time, wasn't it?
The provision you might be granted through Access to Work or various schemes at the beginning, you can change that as things develop.
Yes, definitely. I mean, once you get something awarded from Access to Work, if it's recurring support, like if you buy yourself something that's not recurring, if you have a support worker or a BSL interpreter that keeps going on, if it has an ongoing element, you get a review every few years or every 1 year, which can be your chance to say, actually, my needs changed. Can we do this instead? Can I do more of this, less of this, etc.? Or you can always, as I said, submit a change of circumstances request to Access to Work, where you wait a whole bunch and then they'll ask, well, what changed? What would help then? So there is always options for that.
Okay, great, thank you. And Deborah, if I could just maybe bring you in, for employers wanting, if there are any employers on the call wanting to go along the disability confident journey, kind of how to start that, how to approach it, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you can look up the disability confidence scheme and get the ideas from there. But I would definitely say, look at your interview processes first. Look at how you advertise, where you advertise. You need to get out there. You need to get into the communities, and you need to do that. And you need to stop sticking with the same, because if you stay with the same, you're just going to recruit people with the same skills. So you really need to, you know, pull it all apart and start again with your recruitment, I would say.
Perfect, thank you. I think we may need to wrap up the session there, but thank you so much to Anita, Amy, Deborah and Jo for sharing their expertise with us. I think it's really invaluable, and we really appreciate it, so thank you. Just to say to everyone on the call, we will be sending all of the slides through after this call, and that will include the links that have been shared in the chat, as well as links that were on the slides, so that you can access all of the resources. So don't worry, that will come to you. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this session today. So if you are not part of the Disabled Leaders Network and you're joining as a member of the public, we're really, really grateful to have you here. And I would just say to keep an eye out for our other events. So we have in 2 weeks' time, and I'm sure Sophie might be able to share the sign up link in the chat. We have an event on advocating for change, and that's at a global level and a local level. So we have speakers who've worked with the UN and various bodies like that about how to bring about change for disabled people. So that's in a couple of weeks, and then in a couple of months we'll have one on getting into policy as a disabled person, and how to sort of, you know, politics and all of that stuff, how to go about that as a disabled person. And we'll have many more in the future. So I would say, if you, when you registered to attend this webinar, if you clicked that you were happy for us to contact you, then you don't need to worry. We will let you know when these events happen. If you clicked that you didn't want us to contact you, but you now maybe have changed your mind and you want to be contacted by us, you won't be spammed, don't worry. Then please send an email, and we'll put the email in the chat. Send an email and we'll make sure you are added to the mailing list. So I think all that's left to say is thank you so much to our speakers, and also, sorry, just to say that if you're a member of the Disabled Leaders Network, we'll now be having a closed discussion just as members on the separate link, which you should have received in an email. So please make sure you hop on over there if you're a member of the Disabled Leaders Network. Otherwise, I will say goodbye now. So thank you so much, everyone, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
Take care.